people all sent me away.
Damon Runyon, who wrote the stories, was originally from Colorado, moved to New York in 1907, a heavy drinker, inveterate gambler, and newspaper guy. Wrote about boxing and baseball. He had good friends in the mob. His best friend was an accountant for the mob who was gunned down in a hit attempt against his boss.
The Damon Runyon stories were written in the 30s, and they have a real grit about them, but Guys and Dolls was devised in the 50s, so it was post-war America when things were, albeit, you know, still tough, happier, perkier. So, you know, everybody got married at the end of the play, etc.
It's interesting in the Runyon stories, they're always about a guy, you know, kind of on the low end of the social spectrum, a gambler or a gangster or something like that, who spots this woman who is gorgeous, but who is from a higher social strata, and he just falls madly in love with her, and his whole life kind of shifts to connect to this woman. And that's really what Guys and Dolls is about. I say that it is about the domestication of the wild male animal.
Fine. What do you got there?
Oh, a book.
A book? You're always reading books. You're becoming a regular bookie.
We decided to set the piece in the 30s, although the original production was set in the 50s. So it's just tricky because the physical style of dance in the 30s was a little bit different. That was the Charleston had come in, and we were starting to introduce the boogie sort of aspects of the 40s, the jitterbug.
The fantasy world of the 30s that was kind of expressed in films of the period and in the paintings of, say, Paul Cadmus or Reginald Marsh, kind of a fantasy, hyper-theatrical New York, felt right.
I was trying to find a way to interpret the paintings and make them look contemporary or not fill in all the details for the audience, but what the audience imagined for themselves. So I came up with this idea of using the colors that they used, but fragmenting it all and making a collage. First talked to the tech crew that we're going to build this thing, and I said, well, we're going to make it all out of tissue paper, and they almost fell down, and it was what we actually did. And so that it's just using unusual materials in a much bigger scale. They just kept saying, really? I kept saying, yeah.
You're rocking the boat, and the devil will drag you under. With a soul so heavy you'll never float. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. You're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking. Sit down, sit down, sit down. You're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking. Sit down, sit down, sit down. You're rocking the boat. Sit down. You're rocking the boat.
The choreography for the original production was all created by Michael Kidd, and Michael Kidd was one of the great Broadway choreographers who moved back and forth between Hollywood and Broadway. And he was known for his incredibly athletic style. So a lot of what was ultimately created in the orchestrations was to underpin Michael Kidd's really, really athletic, lots of tumbling, lots of jumps, lots of turns, very, very masculine style for the show. So what's interesting today is to try to find a style of movement that homages all of that, but is also unique and sort of newly created for each production. So the choreography is just a blending of trying to make sense of what was orchestrations from the 50s, but style from the 30s, which is a little sexier, actually, than the 50s.
Costumes available for rental around the country are set in the 50s, and that meant that we needed to build some very specific things from the mid-30s for our production.
That I was one of those girls. Take back the gown, the shoes, and the hat. I may be down, but I'm not flat as all that.
There are 80 costumes in this production of Guys and Dolls, and I can tell you that some of the chorus girls have 9 different costumes, but because they go back and forth out of their character costumes, they have as many as 17 costume changes in the course of the evening.
Take back the gown, take back the hat. I may be down, but I'm not flat as all that.
Costume changing. Well, okay, so you have to rush off stage into the wings and make sure that you're somewhere in the wings where you can't be seen by the audience, which is tricky because there's really tricky sight lines in this show, meaning that you might be standing off stage, but you're still at an angle where some audience members can see you. So you have to get somewhere really quick where you're hidden, and then hopefully they'll have a dresser, someone there from wardrobe waiting for you as soon as you get there. And my costume changes entail changing tights, even like putting on fishnet tights, or when I'm in the mission I'm wearing very proper like black knee highs, so changing that. Changing shoes. When I'm hotbox I'm wearing very high-heeled shoes. When I'm in the mission they're like nun shoes. Changing my wig, depending on if I'm a hotbox girl or if I'm in the mission or if I'm someone in Havana dancing or if I'm a guy, all different wigs. So I'm constantly getting my wig changed back and forth. And then obviously the costumes as well, so changing all of your clothes. And so you have to work out with the dresser and with the person working in wigs how your costume change is going to work. And it's just like choreography on stage. It's just happening in the wings. So you have to get it down to a science of, then I take off my left shoe, and when I'm tying my other shoe, you're going to be buttoning up my shirt. And then when you're putting on my wig, I'm putting on my gloves. And you plan it all out so that you know exactly how long it's going to take you.
There are more props in this show than any, I think, in PCS history, actually.
We're using most all of the lighting inventory that's available in the main stage theater space.
Even in the first number, which is 3 minutes, I think the prop list was a page and a half. And some of that's from the script, and then some of it's just stuff that I've thrown in there. Why is that? Why are there so many props? I don't know why there's so many props in this show.
Chris has taken, from me, what has always been some numbers like Oldest Established and Guys and Dolls that have been the choreographer's numbers, and he's taken them himself and bringing, I think it changes the emphasis from the movement necessarily to the acting and the intention, which I think is a great way to keep there from being that break between scene and now we're going to sing and now we're going to dance, and it starts to blur the lines and make those transitions a lot smoother.
Usually when you do regional theater, you sort of go and take off running. The first day you're singing or dancing or both. And sometimes you don't even know what the storyline of the show is until you're getting to, run-throughs. But we really sat down and took a lot of time to look at the script and analyze the script, all of us together, which was great, because it gave all of us the opportunity to know what was going on and have almost, not really input, but kind of personal knowledge into what all the principal characters are doing and why they're doing it.
In rehearsals, John Plumpus and I, John plays Nathan, we actually spend a lot of time outside of the Portland Center stage talking. We have made a lot of decisions about our characters, and we talk about our relationship. We run lines and make sure that we're completely familiar with the text so that when we come to rehearsal, Chris Coleman and John and I can really dig into the reality of these characters. We spend a lot of time talking about what's not on the page. We talk about where we were before, what happened right before the scene happened, what's going to happen right after the scene ends, and then even inside the scene, sometimes we'll work it out so that one person is saying a line, and while one person is talking, the other person is actually saying out loud their inner thoughts. So we actually have a chance to explore the reality of what's happening in the scene.
When you think about the fact that the dancers in this production are also carrying the load in terms of the backup vocals and the character roles, it's a pretty amazing, talented cast. We're very, very, very lucky. We had great auditions and ended up with great people, And that's the make or break for any show, but especially for Guys and Dolls, because you really got to believe every tiny character that's on stage.
Love will you be a lady?